we go. All right, let's see who shows up. Sometimes it takes a couple of seconds for things to show. Ooh, that's new. Oh, no, I'm not doing that. Pass. I think it took a couple of minutes for it to come last time.
Yep.
Yeah, I see there are 2 people watching.
Woohoo!
One of them is probably Eric, but that's still, Eric is still a person.
He is. He counts. DMs are people too.
That's true. Hi, Mike! Yeah, in our interview, Eric was careful to point out that the DM is also a player.
Yes.
So, all right. Okay, we have some people. Let's get going. All right. Hi, guys. I'm Erin M. Evans. I'm the author of the Brimstone Angels saga, and I am bringing you another in our series of Dungeon Scrawlers interviews. This time, I have Randy Henderson. Tell them who you are, Randy.
I'm Randy Henderson. No,
Good job!
Yay! I'm Randy Henderson, author of the Fin Fantasy series, is what I'm best known for from Tor, and and I play Rogar Battlebear in our campaign. He's a dwarf cleric, and sometimes Dieter, who is a bard, dwarf bard.
We will talk about Dieter.
And that's me. I'm a writer, mostly gamer. And yeah, I don't know what else to say.
Fun loving guy. Okay, so let's start with this. How did you get involved in Dungeon Scrawlers? Is the right question to ask. How do you know Eric?
Well, actually, I knew Eric.
Everybody
knows
Eric. That's what I'm saying.
Our half-orc bard in the group. But it was actually Stephen Merlino who invited me.
Stephen is turning into the new Eric. Everybody knows Stephen.
Yeah, I was late. I was late to the party, so I'm the last person to join the group. They'd already played like a dozen games or something like that, and they had a paladin who had to leave the group. And then, so Stephen reached out to me and was like, "We have this group, and would you like to play?" I'm like, "Oh, heck yeah!" And then I said, I'll play my halfling rogue trickster, which is my favorite character to play. And he's like, "Actually, we kind of need a tank and a healer." And I'm like, "Oh, okay." So
he's like, "No, don't step on my turf."
Yeah, and
I'm the trickster.
Yeah, he's a trickster rogue, so he probably was like, "No, I don't need the competition." So I am a dwarf cleric, and I've never played a dwarf before, nor a cleric, so it's been fun.
How much D&D did you play before this? Were you pretty well versed?
Not to date myself, but I remember when D&D first edition, when my nerdy friends in middle school started playing this new game called D&D.
Yeah.
And so I got into it then some. I remember oddly, most of my characters ended up being half-elf, fighter, mage, rogues with a soul-sucking sword, right? Because everyone had a soul-sucking sword, Elric. Anyway, so...
you gotta love what you love.
You gotta love what you love. But, those were the days. And then, but then I kind of fell away from it, and then, in the 90s, second edition, played some with some friends, but it was one of those things where, you don't have the awesome tools you have now to just be able to easily connect with people. So trying to get a group together consistently was kind of challenging, and what that meant was usually I would have to be the DM. If I wanted people to play, I would have to DM. So a lot of homebrewed stuff I did in the 90s, and then I fell away again, didn't touch 3 or 3.5, not as much into the figures and the mechanics. For those who do enjoy it, no offense, but it's just not me. I'm more of a theater of the mind kind of a player. And then 4 came back, and I was my interest was piqued. And then, I played Yang Yang. Actually, ran a couple games. I played where I got to play a halfling rogue trickster. And,
did you have a soul-sucking sword?
I did not have a soul-sucking sword, but I think that some of the other players wanted to suck my soul because I was always getting us into trouble, and I think. Yeah, Yang Yang's probably happy I'm not playing a rogue trickster in this one. We went into this place where there was a board.
It's called plot and conflict.
Yeah.
These are good things.
Yeah.
Sorry, I interrupted your story though.
No, I'm just rambling now. So there was a.
That's what this is for.
Walked into an inn that I owned.
Charmingly.
Someone had left wards all around to alert them if I returned. And we were investigating this secretive group. So I figured, it's probably the secretive group that left the wards. And everyone else was like, step carefully away from the wards, right? And I'm like, but if we trip the wards, then the people we're trying to find will come to us. Boom! And so much easier, right? It turned out, surprisingly, that did not go well. But yeah.
Those are I feel like those are really the best D&D stories where it's like, so the plan was, but then chaos ensued.
That's one of the great things about D&D. Yeah, never goes as planned.
Okay, so let's go back to Fin Fancy. So this is a series with the character Finn is accused of a crime that he didn't commit, and he's sort of sent to another dimension. And that happens in is it 1985?
85, 86, I think.
Right, and so then he comes out.
40.
Yeah. Has to be
25 years later. Yeah.
With only a teenager's experience. And it's not. Would you categorize that as urban fantasy?
Yeah.
If you have to pick a subgenre.
What they would call it today is contemporary fantasy.
Yeah.
Because urban fantasy is dead. But it's technically urban fantasy. And I actually hadn't read much urban fantasy before that. So it happened by accident. I'm mostly an epic fantasy and portal fantasy type writer. But yeah, so it was a happy accident that I wrote it. And then after I wrote it, I started reading a bunch of urban fantasy just to compare and see. And like Dresden Files, or Dresden Files and stuff like that.
That's good. Cool. Eric had some comments about Dresden Files that got people slightly riled.
Oh yeah.
Okay. So it's not like Sword and Sorcery, right? It's not like a Realms novel, but I think there are still some things that you play with there that sort of fit in with a sort of D&D mindset, right? There's wizard. Are they called wizards? And you have to remind me. I read this when it came out.
There's
so
five different branches of magic, and there's wizardry, necromancy. I wrote this 7 years ago. The first one's 7 years ago. Sorry, I'm
That's
deep
fair.
into. I've just finished writing a whole other thing, so my mind's in this completely.
Do you want to talk
other
about
world.
the other thing instead?
Not so much. It's a Persian influenced second world mage punk. So technology is magic, and magic is technology. So,
Intriguing.
Hacking a magical internet. But
oh my god, guys! Eric promised me he'd text me questions because my thing keeps not scrolling. So I was like, oh, nobody's really engaging, but you're all engaging wonderfully. So we're just going to trust Eric to take care of that. Okay, wait. Sorry.
Don't worry.
Get back to my questions.
So Fin Fancy. Fin Fancy has 5 different magics. It was influenced heavily by the Master of 5 Magics. It's a book from the 80s. So there's 5 different magic systems, and there's all kinds of magical creatures, and there's plots and adventures, but it's also it's darkly humorous. So there's lots of humor, lots of 80s and 90s references.
Poor Randy makes all the references, and people are like, "What?
Yeah.
Where have you been?"
Yeah.
I think
which is my life.
And you should. And he does drop a lot of references and puns. You're a pun guy.
Thank you.
Oh no, I made a pun. I'm not a pun person most of the time, but I'll make an exception. All right. Okay, so what do you think being a writer sort of changes or brings to your playstyle in D&D? What do you think having this group of writers play how do you think that's different than another group? Everybody
it's
has
good
to
and
answer
bad.
this question.
Yeah, it's good and bad. Right? There's pros and cons. So one of the things, and I mean, my gaming is informed my writing is informed my gaming. So, and I think one of the best things is the D&D is basically a sandbox, right? It's they give you the tools, they give you the setting and the systems, and then you create the story live as you go. And I think from a writing perspective, so that goes against a lot of my writing instincts, which is to have this story and a plot and direct things in a certain way, right? And if you try to do that in D&D, it never works, especially as a DM. If you come in as a DM and think, I'm gonna move my little characters through this little story, they'll just go over here and do something completely different anyway. So
this is why I'm not allowed to do.
Yeah. So those kind of writerly instincts to kind of like plot out things and have like definitive arcs and stuff like that. You have to fight those instincts, but like and let go of the I want to control the way things go. But I think the sandbox nature is really cool, and it helped me in my writing. I think, and it's something I noticed since we talked about Dresden Files. Like as Dresden Files, just use as an example. The first 3 books are okay. The rest of the series is pretty cool, and one of the things I noted as I was reading it was that he did a really good job, I think, of setting up a sandbox universe where, he's got all of these different factions, and he's got these different magic systems, and these, you've got Fae, and you've got the vampires, and so you've got all these factions, and once you've created that world, it just opens up so many possible storylines. So if you're into writing series, or you want to write a series, or have kind of an open-ended thing, I think that's a good idea. Is in your world building and stuff to create a sort of sandbox. And I think D&D's kind of helped me.
I fully agree with that, because I feel like when I was writing Brimstone Angels, there were a lot of times where I would like kind of have a gut urge to add something, and it would just sort of be like, okay, it's there.
Yeah.
And then later I'd go, oh wait.
You got to justify it now.
No, even better. I'd be like, oh, I need to figure this thing out, and then like, oh, wait, I did already. I put this back here. Like I said this thing, and I'm like, that could be this. There's this big reveal in the last book of Identity, which is I mean the book came out in 2016, and I feel like most of you have probably read it, but still I don't think Randy's read W now, so let's be nice. But there's this reveal, and there's this character that's been in every single book, and then like I realized I was describing like the way that this was going to turn out, and like how this is sort of this hero's journey point where it's like I need to if I'm trying to figure out how this actually goes down, I should think about this, and there should be these sorts of like guardians and things, and I'm like, oh my god, I know who that is, and it was I didn't plan it at all. But I think that like there's that certain amount of like when you're writing, you're kind of writing with your head, and you're writing with your heart, and you're writing with your gut.
Yeah.
And if you listen to your gut, you get those nice little threads in there, which I think kind of plays into that sort of like if you're going to build an arc while being flexible with everybody else's story, like following those gut threads and finding things. But for Rogar comes in to the adventure with a story, with a plan, kind of, that Eric referred to. So Rogar has heard a great prophecy.
He's heard a prophecy. Rogar's so okay, let's just start from the top. Y'all, Forgotten Realms does not make hill dwarfs an easy thing to figure out. So, like, hey, you want to be a half elf or an elf or a human? There's like all of this material. You want to be a dwarf? There's this much material, and of that, this much is mountain dwarves. This much is like hill dwarf, gold dwarf stuff. And then, so that's just the start.
Comments with people pointing out all the obscure things you could read about hill dwarves.
I was going to ask, please do put in the comments. So here's what I got. I got Dwarves Deep by Ed Greenwood. That's a valuable resource. But let's remember that was written in 1990. I got Forgotten Realms campaign guide with Bruce Cordell. Hey, Bruce. And Ed Greenwood, and I think like Chris Sims. And anyway, so that's got a little bit in there. Got the old Dwarves guy from the 90s as well. That series they put out in those nice little brown covers, those thin guides, which doesn't have much helpful for me. But anyway, but then trying to find like, so I just kind of want to know like what the dwarves are like, what their culture's like, what like the hill dwarves or gold dwarves. And just to digress even further, what's up with those names, right? Like when I thought Hilldorf, I was imagining like hobbits, like living in hills, right? And then like, no, they live underground in Great. Oh, okay, so all right. But then, so what do mountain dwarfs? Oh, they live underground in Great. Okay, so.
But they're different.
They're different. Oh, but then they changed it to shield and gold dwarf. Okay, so what? Gold dwarves don't use shields? Shield dwarves don't like gold? I don't what? But anyway,
it's the kind of thing where I find like
that's just
hit the lore, you hit the weird thing, and you care about it. Right?
Yeah, right.
It's like you can't just.
Once I started digging, I was like,
but once you're like, no, I'm invested. I'm gonna make this work. I'm gonna make it awesome.
Yeah.
I think you've been doing that with Rogar, because like for starters, like so we have your prophecy, which is delightfully bonkers,
Right.
but also we have Rogar's chosen god is not kind of the standard dwarf god. Like it's not Moradin. It's
not Moradin.
It's Sharindlar.
Yes. And speaking of names, we have the Shar, which is a land. We have Shar, the dark goddess. We have Sharindlar. Why would you name a goddess that's like all equal Shar and then a goddess Sharindlar? Like, did you not realize there's 27 letters in the alphabet?
Do you know how many
anyway.
books you gotta go through to catch up?
Okay, but anyway.
Out of curiosity, how much experience did you have with Forgotten Realms when you started this?
I had some.
Yeah.
Again, I mean, I kind of bounced around, and a lot of my stuff, like I said, in the 90s was homebrewed. So, not a lot. Right now, I'm reading Salvatore's Cleric Quintet because it's about clerics.
There you go.
And because it has a couple of dwarf characters, Pykel and Ivan. So, I am doing that. I found that. But other than that, again, not a lot of dwarves prominent in fiction, and try to find a gold dwarf, like, as a prominent character.
Find him a gold dwarf.
Find me a gold dwarf.
Because
your mission, should you choose to accept it. But
I think they're okay. I can't remember if I'm thinking of I can't remember if I'm thinking of Marcy Rockwell's Eberron novel, or if I'm thinking of Lisa Smedman's dwarf. There might be one. We might find you one. It'll be very exciting. I joke because I feel like we've all had this sort of like, what is happening? Where like you have like uncountable people putting their fingers in things, and like it's hard to track it all, right?
Yeah.
So you get those overlaps, and you're like, why is this a Sharn and this a Sharn? Right? What?
Yeah. Yeah.
But
so Sharindlar, the question was.
So Sharindlar.
I digress like crazy. So the question was Sharindlar. Why Sharindlar? So because I wanted a challenge, and because I like I didn't want to do just. I want to do something unique. And Sharindlar. So on the surface, she's a goddess of life, and health. But the whole thing is like kind of her second job that the dwarves don't like to talk about too much is she's like the goddess of love, if you know what I mean. And so yeah, and I kind of found that interesting, and I could play with that a little bit. And so here's the other thing too. So the reason some of this is any resource you can find right now on dwarves, for the most part, especially gold dwarves, is pre-spell plague or during spell plague. Like post, the second sundering, nothing as far as I can tell. So
whatever you want.
Yeah, so this was like, I'm like, cool, I can like create, I can make up like, so I'm thinking, so the whole thing about gold dwarves society is they felt themselves superior because they had this long continuous culture. Mm-hmm. And they're very big on tradition and just, continuing the clans and the people following the family occupation and all that kind of stuff, right? And then all of a sudden, their civilization literally collapses in the Sundering, right? And then the spell plague and everything, right. And they're all dispersed, right?
Sorry.
And then and then all of a sudden, second Sundering's like, it's back, or at least the rift is back, right? And restored.
An elemental died and filled it up.
Yeah,
yep.
Yeah. Sure. And
we
then
love this. We play.
Yeah. So, but then they still have to, I'm assuming, rebuild all of their rebuild the cities.
Mm-hmm.
I think Urquhart was moved a little bit, or but there's nothing I can find anything on what is going on with the gold doors. Plus, like the psychology of it and all, right? I mean, like you're this people whose entire they're feeling superior and this tradition and super invested in their home. Like they built all the defenses and built all the stuff, and that's their identity, and it's wiped out. And what does that do to them as a people? On a large portion of their population probably was wiped out, and dwarves are very slow to procreate. So I'm thinking Sharindlar is probably going to take, does that, there is going to become increasingly an important goddess to them. And then I was thinking there'd be some jockeying within the temples and within the priesthoods and stuff in terms of whose god's really most important right now, right? We need to defend ourselves now that we're weak in this weakened state and trying to rebuild. or is it the rebuilding gods, or is it the love gods, the like repopulator people and stuff like that? So I started imagining all these inner politics. This is the problem also with being a writer. Is like I basically started writing like 5 novels in my head about.
It's not a problem; it's a benefit.
Yeah, right.
Aside from the fact where like you kind of can't write that novel specifically, but
yeah. Yeah. So it's been 13-ish years in our, I think so our game campaign's taking place mid 1490s, I want to say, or early to mid 1490s. So we're roughly 12, 13 years after the Second Sundering. So, you know, it's been 13 years of them dealing with it's back, and what are we going to do? And and you know, the security of that, right? Like, okay, it's completely gone. Now it's completely back. Like, how secure do you feel that it's going to stay back? That some god's not going to decide to make another grab for power.
It's hard living in the Forgotten Realms when this stuff keeps coming out of the pipe. So Eric has sent me some of your questions so that I can scroll.
Okay, yeah.
So one, we did skip right over the prophecy, and so there's an ask, what is a bogglewomp? Or more accurately, what does Rogar believe a bogglewomp to be?
Alright, bogglewomps. Okay, so bogglewomps. So I imagine him as a quixotic character. Rogar has a lot of suppressed things going on. So he's raised in this very traditional society, and within the temple itself, they're very big on procreation, and also like repopulating the dwarven species at this point after everything that happened. And there's all these factors going on that has forced Rogar to sort of not. He's an orphan and an acolyte of the temple, though he was raised in the temple. And there's all these things that have caused him to suppress things. Anyway, probably more background. So the point being, he's wanted to be a cleric, and then suddenly he gets this vision, and in this vision, so there I was.
We're going to do the Rogar voice, guys. Buckle up.
No. So let me just say up front,
it's amazing.
No, this is Hill Dwarf. It's not Scottish. I don't want Scottish people being like, you murdered.
Do you know
language.
What? Like all these folks, they love Bob Salvatore's books, and Bob Salvatore's books also have a rather Scottish accent. Because what are you going to do when you're trying to represent an accent in a language that doesn't exist, technically? That's against being now you're speaking in another language that doesn't technically exist, and so we'll just shorthand it.
Right, I know it's canon, but I'm just saying, like, my version of it is probably not perfect, and I don't want like an actual Scottish person to be like, "Aye, wee bogag, you fucked it up." Right, it's so anyway. Right, so there I was asleep, and suddenly I rose up out of my body. And I floated up, and I saw myself in the bed, and I saw the temple, and I saw the mountains, and I rose up over a Toril, and there I was in the sky. And there were all of these great, bright breaks in the universe, and through them were streaming these horrible creatures of all shapes and sizes. And fighting them was Gorm Gothin, the Dwarven defender god. And Gorm turned to me, and he said, "Rogar, you must defend the Western Gate. Stop. Find out who the bogglewomps are and stop them." And then I was flung back into my body. And as I hit my body, I threw out my hands to stop the bogglewomps. And from it, a guiding bolt fired into the wall. And that's how I knew I had Sharindolar's grace to go forward and investigate this. What are the bogglewomps? Anyway, the bogglewomps are
to go to the Western Gate.
Who can say what the bogglewomps really are? But the Western Gate. So I ended up first. I tried the Western Gate of the Rift, but that didn't seem to go too well for me. And then so I went to Westgate. I figured, it must be Westgate.
Makes sense.
As many cults and religions do. It's like, we thought the world was going to end 2020, so maybe it's going to end in 2025. That's it. We miscalculated. So we miscalculated.
This isn't a weird dream. It's just a prophecy you don't understand.
It's a prophecy I don't understand yet. It's not. Anyway, but it is. It was a vision. Mm-hmm. I do believe it was given to me by the gods.
Yep.
But
in the realms, that's a pretty fair bet.
Yeah.
Whether it's something you actually want to get mixed up in, different question.
Yeah, and I can't deny that I have been blessed with Sharinglar's grace, because I have the clerical powers now.
He has a big love hammer.
My spiritual weapon is a love hammer. Yeah. So here, yeah.
Let's see. Can we hold it up?
Yeah.
There's
There's
Rogar
with some reflection on that. But yeah, that's
love hammer of love or
my
love
hammer
hammer.
of love.
Hammer of love.
So anyway, yeah, he kind of on this quixotic quest. So it's kind of like Don Quixote, right? Like tilting at windows a little bit, but it's also there is Sharinglar or Gormgulfin or somebody gave him that vision for a reason.
What if the Bubblewumps gave him the vision?
What if the
Okay.
Then I'd have to find out what a Bogglewump is to figure out why they gave me the vision. So same quest. Doesn't really change the quest.
That's true. Okay, let's see. So Nico wants to know, what's your favorite moment of the campaign so far?
Let's see. Oh, there've been quite a few. I think though. So shoot. All right.
Do you need some?
The last one thing I will say about this campaign thus far is it's reignited my love of art. So I liked to draw when I was younger a bit, and I didn't for the longest time, like years, decades. And then like a few games ago, like something happened, and I was like, oh my god, I got to draw that. So I drew it. And then the next game something happened, I'm like, oh my god, I got to draw that. And I drew it. So the games have inspired me to kind of start drawing and getting into art again. But not that it's great, but it's the start. And those moments were Stong, our half-orc bard, got I can't remember if he's got swallowed or he jumped into the mouth of a giant snake.
He jumped into its mouth.
And then at a certain point, he jumped on the uvula and was swinging that thing that hangs down in the back of the neck or back of the throat in cartoons. You know, you see the thing. So he was swinging on that like Miley Cyrus wrecking ball style. And then
do you have that picture?
I have that picture.
Show them that picture.
And then
that was good.
I'll post it to the comments.
There we go. That works.
And then let's see. We had our last session. We had a doppelganger show up. And then and I was like, yeah.
What Ed is in the comments? Hi Ed.
Hi Ed. Thank you very much for Dwarves Deep. Can you write a if you find the time and inclination, write a follow-up post Second Sundering.
Yes. Well, Ed, you know what? If you're bored, Randy wants more Hill Dwarf lore. Bad. And let me tell you something. If you get this beautiful gift of an email from Ed, it'll be amazing.
Yeah.
However, we do understand that you're recovering and you're busy. But...
Yeah. No, I'm joking. Obviously, I'm sure you get no requests for additional information on the Forgotten Realm. I appreciate fully everything that you have given to us.
Here's sorry, did you have another one?
No, sorry.
Because you know what? Let's.
Yeah. So he imitated Sturgeon. I'm all like, it's me, a Sturgio.
That's right. Doppelgangers. Doppelgangers. Okay, so we had a period. We talked about this actually last time. That there was a period where we sort of ended our story arc. And Cecilia went off to the Feywild, and Rogar was gravely wounded, or possibly I was gone, so I don't know what happened.
He went off to deal with his disappointment in his quest with the Bogglewumps and how he could have died briefly if Sharinglar was protecting him. Anyway, he had some stuff to work out.
Big feelings.
Yeah, big feelings.
So you played an alternate character, and so did I. And I played Ramsay Crownsilver, who is a character from my books, is the child of Pavelar and Braden Crownsilver. And you played his tutor, Dieter. Dieter and Rogar are not alike.
No, they're kind of the opposites, and on purpose.
Right.
But also, are they? So Dieter's a mountain dwarf and a bard, and so he speaks with Germanic accent because he's mountain dwarf, and that's canon for mountain dwarfs, as I understand. So, but he speaks. So, but Dieter's not like, he's not the grim and dark and like, grim, dark type of dwarf. He's a fun dwarf. Yeah, Dieter loves to dance and loves to sing, and he has a little monkey named Hasselhoff. A monkey named Hasselhoff, and yeah, you can touch my monkey if you want. Yeah, so Dieter likes to dance and sing, and he's very amorous. Dieter is very amorous, and so in a lot of ways, Dieter is the opposite of Rogar, but also in my mind, so Dieter's it's an environment thing, like
it's almost like if you talk about tarot cards, right? There's a meaning that's when you play it one way, and then it's inverted, and the inverted version is not the opposite; it's like a different take.
Yeah,
and so they're like that, right? Like,
right.
You've got kind of the same core, but you've put different pressure on it.
Yes.
Created something new. Exactly.
So, like, if Rogar had not been raised in this very conservative, traditional, as an acolyte in a temple his entire life, versus Dieter, who lived a very different, free kind of life, like, would Rogar be Dieter, basically?
Yeah. Aside, the accent would be different. We'll talk about accents
yeah.
in a second. We had a question, just real quick to tie it in. Kendra wanted to know how old Remzi was, because the game's in 1492. We kind of like blurred this a little because I wanted him to be a teenager. So he was like 15, I think.
Remzi was very edgelord.
That was mostly because the only mini we could find at the time that was like basically suited was like this like snarly dark guy. I don't know. I think Remzi was more like, whoa, we're having such an adventure. Because I think probably he hasn't had a lot of tutors like Dieter. I think they
Nobody had a tutor.
I can imagine there was certain I imagine there was certain drama when Bryn shows up and says, here's my tiefling son, and he's legitimate, and let's go. Yeah. And Rita's like, oh my god, we're not doing this. We're not doing this until you give me some time to sort out how to not get you and all your family killed. So Remzi gets sent with Dieter to go study, and then instead they go on an adventure. And Remzi learns a lot of things about music and how to be charismatic and how to seduce a half-orc chieftainess.
Oh god, yeah. Oh, that was another favorite moment. Dieter, right, and not just any half-orc.
No,
like,
sorry, she was a full
matron.
Orc. She was an orc. I forgot. She was a
full
orc.
Yeah, full orc.
Because that's Stong's mom.
Stong's mom. Our half-orc bard in the party, it was his mom. Dieter seduced her, and then probably had to seriously go see a chiropractor the next day. But it was, and let's not even just try and figure out the mechanics of dwarf anyway. But yeah, so that was a fun moment.
People have heard some of your accents. They're very good. I have to admit, when I showed up and you said something, I think you had said you were going to do a Scottish accent, and I was like, because I think a lot of people think they can do accents. I can't do accents. But one of my favorite moments in our early games was when you met a dwarf. I think you met, it was like a mountain dwarf or something.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, well, they're different. But don't worry, I speak mountain dwarf. And then you just like dropped into this Australian accent. I don't remember it was Australian. It might have been German. But
yeah,
it was a delightful surprise.
The best part though was that it was Eric playing the NPC, right? So I then had set up that this is how they speak because I'm speaking to them in their language. And Eric, I could see Eric like momentarily like, should I even attempt? And then I think he just shook his head and was like, nope. Like, I'm not responding to you or something like that. But yeah. Okay,
so I'm going to tell you some kinds of dwarves, and then you can do a dwarf accent.
Oh, okay.
I don't know it's a good thing for you to say, but so if you just want to riff, that's great. But if you wanted to say, like by the grace of Sharindlar, that's also cool.
Sure.
Let's see if anybody says what to say. Now we go. Okay. All right, so let's start with, so do your hill dwarf first, because that's the baseline, right? That's Rogar.
Right, so, yeah, that's a bit Scottish, but, right, I mean, again, apologies to anyone who's actually Scottish.
You can write your complaints down and send them to me. I'll tell you. I'll tell
I didn't mean to.
you. All right, and then can we hear a shield dwarf, a mountain dwarf?
Yeah, so, Germanic. Sorry. Mountain dwarfs are Germanic. Yeah, they very, so, as I imagine, sorry. Yeah,
no,
Germanic.
Keep going, it's good.
Germanic.
All right, can you do a frost dwarf, an Arctic dwarf?
Right, okay. So I think there's different. So I think frost dwarf is like, they're like Viking-ish. They had like mountain giant jarls and they berserkers. So they were clearly Viking-ish. So
right.
Okay. So was the frosty dwarf would probably be used sort of Scandinavian, sort of, I imagine. And Arctics
Those
are
are
more,
the same, I think.
No, I think Arctic are like.
Probably they're like adjacent.
No, I think Arctic is forgotten. No, I think it's completely different. I think they're like,
really?
I think they're like. I was researching which kind of dwarf to be.
It was dwarf character.
It was they ride bears and they're kind of, they don't do
Why did I write that dwarf
they,
character?
So I imagine like in my mind. They're more hunter-gatherers, so in my mind they're like Inuit or like Eskimo, and I would not do that because that would be offensive. So if I played one, I'd probably
Ooh, they could be Canadian.
Oh, I don't know. Yeah, I suppose they could be Canadian. But no, I'd probably do Russian. Like,
oh, I like it.
They ride the bear. They are strong like bear. They ride the bear, and but they are not grim Russians. They're like. I think they're gregarious, like so. That was Scott. They're gregarious. So they'll be like, after the Russians after drinking much vodka, drinking much vodka, so dancing and singing. I'm an Arctic dwarf. I'm an Arctic dwarf.
This is hard.
Braid my hair. I hunt for fish. And I ride my bear, da.
We got a request for
what?
Dwerger. Let's jump to Dwerger. I'm not actually sure I'm saying that right. Like,
Dwerger, like,
I love this about the There's so many words I'm like.
I just picture them as talking like Snape, but I cannot do his accent. So or an impersonation of him. So I imagine they're offshoots of mountain dwarves, I think. So probably Germanic, but like they're evil Germanic, right? Not that we have any examples of evil Germanic. But so like so you will answer questions kind of a thing. But like rather than you will answer. You have to you've come into the dwerg. Yeah. Oh my God.
Let's go rare.
No, I'm determined to get this.
Okay.
No, I said
I give space.
Yeah. You will come with us. You have come into the door. Yeah, okay, sorry.
Okay, I'm gonna
You
say
have
it
come
wrong.
into the door to me that you will die.
The Urdinir.
Oh, so it's okay to love a mountain, just don't love a mountain. You know what I'm saying? Urdinirs, come on. I think they are.
Rock pants.
Yeah, keep it in your rock pants. I think they are the ones that like are seriously like in communion with the earth and the mountains and stuff.
They can like go through the stone, right? Is that one?
I think maybe that sounds right.
Once again, one dwarf. They're
So
very cool. They're just not where I went.
Yeah, they're probably Germanic too, but like have that whole like geologic time thing going on and like very mellow. So we are the whatever we are. You will. What do you want in our life? Kind of a thing.
That's intense. Okay, real quick. I did this with Eric, so I'm gonna ask you some questions.
Wow, I mangled the Durga. I know I could be trying to do that.
You know what? If you want to like.
Yeah, sorry, folks. Long day.
So Eric, at some point, Rogar might have to speak.
Dwerger.
I don't remember what their language is called. Deep Dwarven? Maybe it's just Dwerger. Nothing has a same language dominant thing.
Yeah, you will answer questions. You will come with us. You have entered the hierarchy of the Dwerger, and you will come anyway.
Okay,
I'm just gonna be doing this all night. I'm gonna go home. I'm gonna be doing this till like 3 a.m. I know I could do better.
We're gonna play later, and he's just Rogar is gonna be like, I'm deep undercover.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll ask you some most likely questions, and you tell me who in the party is most likely. So, who is most likely to need Sharindwar in their lives?
Most likely, some life and some love. I would say probably Sturge. He's our he's our rogue, and he's got this really long nose, but he has some weird things going on. I'm not sure exactly what's going on with him, but it's but anyway,
you can't wait till I introduce Steven.
Yeah, I think he could use a healthy, loving relationship in his life for sure. Yeah.
Okay, who is most likely to be in league with the Bogglewumps?
Ooh, Sturge. Sorry to pick on you, man, but
he's got a power thing though.
Yeah. Yeah. I would sure. Yeah.
You pick Sturge. Okay, who is most likely to be locked away for a crime they didn't commit, possibly for 40?
Oh, like Fin Fancy.
Yes.
Who's locked away for the crime they didn't commit? Stong.
Because these
are always misunderstood. Poor brutes.
It's hard when you do 1d4 damage whenever you hug someone.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. He's just walking through a shop and knocks everything off the shelves.
All right, now we do Dieter. Who is the most likely to let the music move them?
Let's see. Let the music move them? Cecilia. I think. Well, I mean, some of them, but I think Cecilia, she'd be like. I think she would. Yeah.
Okay, so I've got. Let me see. I skipped one earlier because we got kind of going. But someone asked, how do you suggest DMs propose using visions to hook their players into the story? Do you think there's any?
Using vision, I think.
Because your vision was yours. That wasn't something Eric gave you.
Like as an opening, like in the beginning. So I think that as a writer, stakes are important. So I would say, if it's just a vision that there's this darkness up in the castle or whatever, well, they can just hear that as a rumor in the market, right? You don't need to have a vision to get that. But if the vision, and I'm just making stuff up here, but if the vision is meaningful to the characters, like they see their loved ones burning and they see their whatever, then that's going to move them. That's going to motivate them more probably. And if it's tied back to some specific thing, or if it's a vision of something like basically that they feel that they need or they've always wanted, and but it's not necessarily what they need, but it's what they think they want. Then they go traipsing after it, and only to find out that that's not what they want at all.
You're right. I think like stakes and like specificity.
Yeah.
The other thing about the darkness in the castle is sort of like, okay, like that doesn't really like build your fear up the way that spiders pouring out of the castle and covering the countryside might.
Right.
That gives you a different visceral experience.
So yeah. Or dolls, little creepy dolls. Anyway,
the kid is starting to go. Dolls are creepy, and now he's like kind of scared of them.
Yeah. So make it specific. Like if every person in the party was struck with the vision at the same time, but it was specific to each of them. Like they all saw a personalized version of it that was like, really touched something within them. I think that would be powerful.
I saw one earlier too, where someone was asking if you felt like DMing was like fiction writing, or I guess like versus being a player. Which one do you feel like is more like fiction writing?
They have aspects. So the DMing is much more like the world. You do a lot of the world building and figuring out the secondary characters and and somewhat of the plotting. Like you kind of figure out where, like, is there a goal? Is there an end point that you're trying to get your characters to, and how can you kind of set things up to sort of guide them in that direction? I think playing, well, like all of the things I've done to try and figure out Rogar, like who is he, what motivates him, so a lot of the character work comes on the player's behalf in terms of what do they want, what do they need, and then that motivates you. Like, so in a story, when you're writing a story, the character walks into a scene. What does that character want? And that's their motivation in that scene, and then something thwarts them from getting that, and then how do they overcome that obstacle, etc. And so as a player character, what do I want coming into the scene, and then how do I try to get that through the gameplay? The challenge is that as players or as DMs, you don't control all of the characters. Mm-hmm. So I can walk into a scene wanting something, but someone else may walk into the scene wanting the same thing, and then now we're in competition, or they may think that's a really bad thing and want to destroy it, and I really want to have it, or whatever, right? Or they may want to go left, and I might want to go right based on my motivations. And so I think that's good also, though, to like break you out as a writer. Like it's easy to just go with your first thought, like mm-hmm. I'm gonna have my character do this, then this, then this, then this. But a lot of times that can be sort of unoriginal or derivative or too straightforward, and sort of embracing the chaos of D&D as an author writing. I think, if I just imagine what would Sturge or Stong do in this situation rather than Rogar, kind of a thing, as a model for like when I'm writing, to try and second guess my first choices and maybe go in a different direction, or have set up interesting characters to play off of my main character and kind of lead them astray. That kind of thing. So all good lessons.
Yeah. Someone wants to know, I want you to describe Rogar's casting of spirit guardians. They're fabulous.
Spirit guardians are they're glorious, beautiful dwarven maidens flying around, their beards flowing in the stream as they sing and raise their mighty hammers and beat the crap out of anyone who comes within range, I suppose.
They're pretty useful.
Yeah, they're pretty useful. Yeah, I like them. I've only recently started using it because we just leveled up recently to where I could actually have spirit guardians. So I'm enjoying it. It's a good spell.
Someone asked if they could have a roleplay sample for Rogar and Cecilia. And it's interesting because I think that Cecilia doesn't have a super strong, like Cecilia and Sturge are kind of perpetually in a grudge fight.
Define roleplay sample.
Oh, just like we talk to each other and you're Rogar and I'm Cecilia.
Oh, okay. Like and right now?
Like, yeah, I'm like, I don't know what the setup is right away, because I think the one thing I do think is like when Cecilia left at the end of the arc, Rogar was the one, she's like, you take care of these guys.
Yeah.
Because nobody's going to do the right thing, but you're going to do the right thing.
Right. And I think...
But I don't know what Rogar thinks of Cecilia either.
It's a good question. I think I'm a little worried for you. You seem to like be burning the candle, sort of just burning a little bright there. And I'm worried you're going to maybe slow down a little bit.
It's cool. I'll slow down. I'll just go chill in my room for 10 days.
I'm just worried that you have your sister.
I mean, my sister is the one who goes to the best halls like every night. I mean, I guess that's sort of up your alley. She's doing what she's supposed to.
Well, I worry for her as well. She's
why? She's banging all the hot elf guys.
She's banging lots of hot elf guys. Is that love? I don't know if that's love. Not to judge. I mean, she could do both. Like, if she finds a partner who's cool with her, but it's good to have someone in your life who's like there consistently.
That's me.
It's sort of your true enough, I suppose. Yeah, emotional support.
I mean, ish.
Ish.
Enough. Ish.
Cecilia as emotional support.
She'll say she is.
Yeah.
The only thing I enjoy about and I'm going to enjoy as we play forward too is that there are a lot of things where Cecilia has misrepresented herself in ways that have taken hold and will be destroyed and will be wonderful. But she's still not evil. Let me see if there's anyone's in here that we missed.
And I was speaking as Rogar, not as myself.
Oh no, that's
just
fine.
to be clear.
Cecilia's not me, so I don't.
Yeah,
it's okay. She's kind of a dumpster fire in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
But in
Rogar's
a really
a little
entertaining
worried
way.
for her as a friend.
Let me see. I will tell. Rhiannon is actually going to join us next week. So those of you who are like, wait, hot elf guys, we can talk about that.
Yeah, she's in fashion.
Eric just mentioned that. In a way that's really deep character focused.
Yes.
Okay, let me see. And Eric, I think you texted me all the good stuff. We're pretty wrapped. Is there anything else you want to tell folks about you, about your work, about Rogar?
No, I'm really excited. I'm looking forward. I mean, it's exciting that we'll get to stream. Mostly, I'm just having fun playing.
Yeah.
It's great to play, and
so someone asked, "Who's the goody of the group?" That's him.
Yeah, I guess I'm technically the goody of the group.
We're Stong. Stong's the one who wants to be friends with everybody.
Yeah, Stong is like a big lovable guy. But yeah, probably the goody.
Eric,
and
the ones I asked Eric, I asked who is the most likely to seduce the catfish from the Tumblr joke, and he said that was Rogar. Rogar would seduce the catfish.
Yeah,
I don't know about that.
Eventually, maybe in his future arc.
This dwarf. So this is a question.
There.
This is okay. This may be a slightly bigger question than the 5 minutes that we had planned for the rest of this. But so you've mentioned that there are elements of Don Quixote to Rogar, right? He has a what is Ponzai?
Ponzai. Oh,
he's a gnome.
He's a gnome.
Okay. Yeah. He has a helper guy. He's a helper gnome.
Zancho
Ponzai, who disappears when there's danger, which is a wonderful warning device.
Just follows him around and manages his money for him. Very kindly manages all of Rogar's money for him. Yeah. So Rogar's got an intelligence of 9, so -1 on the thing, but a high wisdom. So that's also a fun thing to try and figure out how to play someone who's dumb but very wise. But it also means
pretty well.
But so Zancho Ponzai kind of keeps him out of helps him find room, keeps him out of from just chasing after shiny objects and stuff like that.
So how far does that extend? Like, is there a Dulcinella somewhere? A dwarf and
I think I'm hoping Eric will probably introduce someone for Aurora, a couple of temptations for Rogar somewhere in the coming campaign. So we'll see. It would not be a Dulcinella. It might be more of a will probably be more of a Conan. But
yeah.
Well, yeah,
right.
We'll see. And then yeah.
How much do you talk? Have you talked with Eric about plot points you want to aim at?
I've given him all my thoughts in terms of who Rogar is, what Rogar's struggling with, where and sort of also my thoughts on the post Second Sundering Gold Dwarf sort of
you're getting sucked in
temple politics. Yeah. So in terms of so there may be factions within the temples who really don't like what I'm doing and for very different reasons and be sending folks after me to try and raid me kind of thing. But
that's what Witch Bolt is for.
Yeah, and stuff like that. So I'm sure those kind of thoughts.
Very loyal, slightly trash fire friend.
Yes. Yeah. So
you won't worry about me so much when I blow them up. It'll be fine.
Yeah. Yes.
I'll talk my way out of it. It'll be good.
But when you're washing the bits of people out of your hair in the evening, is there someone to sort of rub your shoulders and say, it's all right?
I mean, I feel like you can pay people in Westgate to do that. I'm not
Yeah,
saying
good point.
I do,
Good.
but they exist.
Yeah.
All right.
Rogar worries too.
He's kind of the dad of the party a little,
He
which
is,
is funny
but
because we
he's-
have an actual dad in our party.
So all of this though is Rogar projecting a lot of stuff too. So
That's good. That's awesome.
yeah.
This is a fun. I think it's a fun thing too. I think everybody's got characters going on where we have sort of like, no, you can come in. You can be a person in here. I found an Eric. That there's sort of like
What
multiple.
was that someone was saying about dwarven Valkyries?
But there's
Yes.
sort of like surface level thing, and you've got like sort of the the deeper level, and then you've got like what's the root, what's the thing that's steering that maybe your character's not entirely aware of.
Right.
And as the story goes on and those layers peel out, I hope we have a lot of really awesome breakdowns on camera. Not real ones, like acted out ones.
Yeah.
Let's not have to
So
do that.
like, I mean, my dream. So, Critical Role is, you've probably heard of it. The culmination of campaign 1. I'm not going to spoil it, but simply to say that in the culmination of campaign 1, there's this moment where, in the moment of victory, there's this real moment of tragedy, like personal tragedy, and player emotion, like serious player emotion. I would love for us to get to that point. They were playing for a couple years at that point. So when we get to a couple years, we'll be like, we'll be bawling our eyes out over each other's characters and stuff like that. Well, knowing me, probably much sooner than that. But yeah. But that's another thing I really like, is that these characters really take on a life of their own, and that they become real to you in a lot of ways if you play them consistently, and if you've really built them out and kind of thought through, like giving them that deeper layer of emotional, So I definitely, I'm looking forward to Rogar. The Bogglewomps may not be external enemies. Let's just say that, but
Ooh.
yeah, we'll see.
Don't worry, Cecilia doesn't pay attention to any of this, like usual. Yep. All right, cool. Well, we're going to stop there because we have to get ready to play our practice game. So once again, thank you guys for tuning in while we interview the members of Dungeon Scrawlers. Check out Randy Henderson's books. We get Thin Fancy, Necromancy, Smells Like Finn Spirit, and Big Footloose and Fancy Free. Yeah, I got it. And come back next week. I'll have Rhiannon Held here. She plays Artemisia, our half-elf neat freak sorceress. And mark your calendars for January 8th so you can check out our Westgate Irregulars stream. Thanks again.